My deepest confession to my husband and how he ultimately forgave me. I never thought I would tell this story publicly. For years I kept it buried, locked in a part of my heart I refused to look at. But the truth has a strange way of returning, whispering in your ear until you finally decide to face it. This is the story of the hardest conversation I ever had with my husband, the confession that nearly destroyed our marriage, and the surprising, almost unbelievable way he chose to respond. It all started during a time when our life looked perfect from the outside. We had a comfortable home, steady jobs, routines we trusted, and moments of laughter that made the days feel familiar. But beneath all of that, something in me had started to drift. Not toward another person, but away from myself and away from him. I didn't realize it at first. It began with small things, feeling irritated over nothing, wanting space without knowing why, pulling back from conversations we used to enjoy. I told myself it was stress, exhaustion, hormones, anything but the truth. I was changing, and instead of communicating, I hid it. I was scared that telling him how I really felt would hurt him, or worse, make him feel inadequate. So I pretended everything was fine. And the more I pretended, the more the distance grew. Then came the moment that changed everything. One evening, after another silent dinner where both of us buried our feelings under polite smiles, he finally really looked at me and asked, "Are you happy?" The softness in his voice broke me. Because I wanted to say yes. I wanted to spare him. But the truth was sitting heavy in my chest, begging to escape. That night, after he fell asleep, I sat alone in the living room. I stared at the wall and felt this ache grow inside me. I realized that I had been lying not just to him, but to myself. I loved him, but I had been pushing him away without giving him a chance to understand why. The guilt of hiding that truth was overwhelming. I knew I couldn't continue like this. That was the moment I decided I needed to confess something I never thought I would have to say. The next morning, I asked him to sit with me. His face tightened instantly, he could feel the weight in my voice. I took a deep breath and told him the truth. I told him I felt like I was losing myself, that I no longer recognized who I was becoming, and that the distance between us wasn't because of something he did, it was because of something I failed to express. And then I said the hardest sentence I've ever spoken: I feel like I stopped loving myself, and in the process, I made you feel unloved too. His eyes filled with confusion at first. Pain. Fear. He asked questions, gentle ones, not accusations. He wanted to understand. But the more he listened, the more I saw a storm building in him. When I admitted that I had been pretending for months, that I hid my struggles because I didn't want him to feel responsible, he looked like the ground had been pulled from under him. He stood up and walked away. Not angrily, not shouting. Just silent. That silence was worse than yelling because it held every emotion he didn't know how to process. For the rest of the day, we barely said a word. I spent hours imagining every possible outcome: divorce, separation, resentment. I replayed every detail of our life together, wondering how I had let myself drift so far from the person he married. That night, when he came into the bedroom, I braced myself. But instead of confronting me, he sat on the bed and asked, "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" His voice wasn't angry. It was hurt. Deeply hurt. I explained that I was afraid. Afraid of disappointing him. Afraid of burdening him. Afraid that admitting these feelings would make him think I didn't love him anymore. And the moment I said those words, I saw something shift in his face. He reached for my hand hesitantly at first, like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to anymore. And then he said something that shattered me and healed me at the same time: "You're my wife. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be honest." I cried. He cried. It was the first time in months that I felt truly connected to him. But forgiveness didn't happen instantly. The days that followed were messy. We had long conversations, some painful, some comforting. We talked about every fear, every insecurity, every moment of distance. We learned how much we had both been holding inside. But the turning point came when he admitted something I never expected: he also felt lost. He had noticed my distance, but instead of asking more questions, he tried to give me space, thinking that was what I needed. He thought if he stayed quiet, he wouldn't overwhelm me. Meanwhile, I took his quietness as detachment. We were both trying to protect each other, and in the process, we ended up hurting each other. Once we understood that, everything changed. For the first time in a long time, we were on the same team again. My confession didn't break our marriage, it rebuilt it. He forgave me, not because my actions were harmless, but because he saw the vulnerable truth behind them. He forgave me because he loved me not for the mask I wore, but for the imperfect, confused, anxious person underneath it. He forgave me because he wanted us to grow, not crumble. Forgiveness didn't erase the pain, but it opened a path forward. We started going on long walks together again. We asked each other deeper questions. We shared our fears early instead of hiding them. And slowly, the distance between us became shorter, until eventually, it disappeared. Looking back, I realized something important: sometimes the deepest confessions we fear will destroy everything are the ones that save us. Not because they're easy, but because they force honesty, vulnerability, and growth. They remind us that love isn't about perfection, it's about choosing each other even when things feel uncertain. I learned that my husband didn't need a flawless wife. He needed a real one. And I'm grateful every day that I finally had the courage to be honest. Because his forgiveness didn't just bring us back together, it brought me back to myself.